Today we're looking at 4.3, graphing using intercepts. You can see that 4.3 is on page 225 in your book if you wanted to follow along with the book as well. So we're beginning here by looking at truly the x-intercept and the y-intercept. And with that, we can read a graph and we are able to find those x and y intercepts. Over here on the right-hand side, we see that this line is crossing the y-axis at 3, and it's crossing the x-axis at 4. So that x-intercept can be written at 4, 0. To find that x-intercept, we know that y must be equal to 0. For the y-intercept, we see that it is at 0, 3. To find the x-intercept, we know that the value of x must be 0. Now, if we think about this in terms of our y equals mx plus b, or our slope-intercept form, we can see that relationship to y you need, for example, for the y-intercept. When x is 0, you would have this rewritten as y equals 0 times m plus b, and that y is equal to b. When we're looking at our x and y intercept, we're always going to notate it as such. So here we have, let's do the y first. We can see that it is 0, and then we're going up to b. And then on the x-axis, we would have a, the value given, and 0 for y. So we have a and b as being those variables that are going to represent the x and y intercept. So let's move on here. So the first thing we're going to look at is when we are given a graph, can we find the x and y intercept? So in number 1, looking for that x-intercept, we can see it's crossing the x-axis at -1, and the value of y is 0. And for that y-intercept, it is at 1. So we are value 0 for x, and we are moving up 1 on that y-axis. We can go ahead and for all of these, we can define our x-intercept and our y-intercept. So we can see that it's 3, 0, and that y-intercept is 0, 2. The same would follow for number 3. We have our x-intercept at 2, 0, and the y-intercept is the -3, 0. Let me erase that. We are looking at 0, -3. Graph the line that has given intercepts. Label the points where the line crosses the x and y axes. So as we're looking here at the first one, we have an x-intercept of 4 and the y-intercept of 5. I'm able to use my intercept points to create my line. And then, of course, if I wanted to add on to that, I can go ahead and say that I have 0, 5, and you can see 4, 0. Do the same for 5 and 6. Press pause. Okay, let's check number 5, and let's check 6. For 5, you see that x-intercept is -3. The y-intercept is 2, and that linear equation would be all of the solutions on that line. And then for number 6, that x-intercept is -2, y-intercept is -6. Oops, not a very good line, but we get the idea. There is our line. Our last section, finding the x-intercept and the y-intercept of the graph of the equation. Then graph the equation using the intercepts. Label all points where the line crosses the x-axis and the y-axis. So here we are for the x-intercept. We know that y would have the value of 0, and so I can rewrite that equation. 3x is going to equal 6 because I know that 2 times 0 is 0. And then x would in turn equal 2. So I have an x-intercept of 2, 0. The opposite holds true for the y-intercept. I know that x is equal to 0, so I would end up with 2y equals 6 and y equals 3. So my y-intercept is 0, 3. I would then take those two values and I would go ahead and plot them. 2, 0 and 0, 3, and then I'm going to create that line. Doing the same for example number 8, that x-intercept, y is equal to 0, and I would have 4x equals 10, x equals 5 halves, or 2 5/10. And so I can see 2 5/10, 0 as my x-intercept. And then, of course, x is equal to 0. So now here I have a negative 2y equals 10, y equals negative 5, and I have my 0, negative 5. I would go ahead and graph that. 2 1/2, 0. There's my x-intercept and my 0, negative 5 to create my line. The last one we're looking at, number 9. X-intercept, so y is set at 0. 0 equals negative 3 plus 3/5 x. 3 equals 3/5 x. I'm going to go ahead and do my solution to solve for x. And 5 is equal to x. I would do the same for y. X equals 0, y equals negative 3. And so I have my 0, negative 3. I can graph 5, 0, 0, negative 3, and I can create that graph. Okay. Have you noticed that there is a shortcut for finding our x and y intercepts? And hopefully you're seeing, okay, this is nice. For my x-intercept, y is always going to equal 0. And for my y-intercept, x is going to equal 0. And then I can solve for the other variable. Here we are with our standard form. So we're looking at negative 4x plus 3y equals 12. So again, that x-intercept, if y is equal to 0, I have negative 4x equals 12, x equals negative 3. So I can go ahead and just write negative 3, 0 for that x-intercept. And then for y, if x is equal to 0, I would end up with 3y equals 12 and y equals 4, leaving me with 0, 4. And we're not going to take a look at this right now. All right. We should be all set with 4.3.